Why the latest death of a governor could trigger a review of county laws. Our top story now, NASA leader Raila Odinga is asking Western nations to pile pressure on Jubilee in the push for a fresh election, saying President Kenyatta's mandate expired on 1st of September. Odinga, who's on a U.S. tour, told a meeting in Washington, D.C. that Western diplomats have abandoned Kenya by okaying the October 26th election. Samogina has the details.
Speaking in Washington, D.C., the NASA leader has invited pressure from the Western governments to check the current political crisis. Odinga claiming Western diplomats in the country have been compromised.
I have come to Washington to convey a simple message. We need a much fuller engagement for the many arms of governance that your country possesses to assist the envoys based in Nairobi.
The opposition chief indicting envoys of worsening the political stalemate for blindly being boxed into backing the Jubilee administration.
The envoys' efforts up to now have not succeeded in diffusing the crisis. But let me be blunt again. They have sometimes contributed to the problem.
The NASA leader warning that upholding of President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election will aggravate radicalization of minority of Kenyans who feel excluded from the regime. Odinga claiming the election boycott by some regions dented the re-election exercise, but the insistence from the Jubilee administration pointed at a nation trudging towards dictatorship.
He threatens to undo everything we've achieved and tearing apart our democratic and inter-ethnic fabric. Let me be blunt. Kenya is hurtling towards an outright dictatorship. The Jubilee government has ridden roughshod over or looted every institution that they could in order to achieve their goal of long-term control of the state, or at least till their self-declared goal of ruling till at least 2034.
The opposition chief holding that an interim government is the only maneuver from the current murky waters. Odinga rooting for a constitutional review to check the executive powers and the state of devolution before a fresh election can be conducted.
A solution must be found in Kenya soon. Each day this crisis continues, the divisions, polarization and the radicalization deepen.
The NASA leader had earlier met a section of the U.S. Congress leaders pushing for the West to pile pressure on Kenya's administration to force for a transitional government.
But a credible election is the only option Kenya has to give peace a chance, and even more important, heal a nation that has been torn into angry bits.
Odinga is set to jet back into the country over the weekend.
Our story is also on our dailies this morning on page 4 of the Standard. Raila blasts Western diplomats. Mr. Odinga has called for respect of civil society and the media, which are vibrant institutions in shaping democracy in the region. Let me read a quote here. This is Mr. Odinga. Kenya matters, at least it did then. In this crisis, though, the U.S. and other pro-democratic friends chose to avert their gaze from the unfolding election lawlessness and continued against all the evidence to support a deeply tainted electoral process. That's a story on page 4 of the Standard. On the Daily Nation as well, Raila seeks U.S. help to end political impasse. NASA leader accuses Western envoys of dwelling on terrorism and ignoring basic democratic space. He says NASA will not take part in another poll should Supreme Court annul Uhuru's October 26th victory. That's a story as far as the headlines are concerned. To another story now, county assemblies dominated by the National Super Alliance have begun considering a motion seeking to establish people's assemblies to deliberate on reforming the electoral system and system of governance. NASA has meanwhile postponed street demos that had been slated for today to give MPs time to guide MCAs on the formation of the assemblies. Sam Gituko with that report.
A delegation of the National Resistance Movement led by Siaya Senator James Orengo made its first stop at Kakamega County Assembly. Their mission to drum up support for adoption of the motion that will pave way for establishment of People's Assembly comprising all elected leaders in the county, representatives of trade unions, religious groups and representatives of civil societies.
And this is the mission.
The Assembly is expected to receive deliberate and pass proposals to reform the electoral body IEBC and review the system of governance at the national level. But the Kakamega Assembly could not consider the motion as it had not been prioritized by the House Business Committee, pushing it to Tuesday next week.
We want to compete at the level of the mind. We are going to engage using our minds, and I can assure you, every time I look on the other side in Jubilee, I don't see any mind that you can compare to Orengo, Miguna, Raila Odinga, Wetangula, Mudavadi, Malala, not even to mention the bullfighter.
At the neighboring Bungoma County Assembly, members have vowed to adopt the motion once tabled for deliberation. In Homa Bay, MCAs say the motion has already been approved, paving way for the county government to establish the congregation and allocate necessary resources.
We'll have to bring members of the public on board so that we sensitize them the best way possible to understand what really it entails to have the establishment of People's Assembly.
But there is a hitch. A group calling itself Bunge la Mwananchi has claimed intentions by NASA to end it up in favor of the new proposal. The group that conducts informal conversations on the political developments in the county wants deliberations with power sharing in the new entity.
We expect them to come down to us, give us their structure. We also give our structure. If it conforms, if it goes with theirs, we shall have no problem. We'll work with them together.
Nobody can accept a hostile takeover. It has to be negotiated. It has to be a dialogue. We are not going to accept a hostile takeover.
Details of what happens after the People's Assemblies are constituted and adopt proposals remain unclear. The legislative framework under the Constitution only providing for consideration of motions and bills at county assemblies and parliament. Meanwhile, the Conference of Catholic Bishops has called at NASA's call for economic boycott of certain companies and products. Speaking in Nakuru during a special mass for the late Bishop Cornelius Kuril, the bishops have called for dialogue around the political class to resolve the political standoff. As part of its resistance plans, NASA had also scheduled demonstrations in Nairobi set for tomorrow. This has now been called off to give a boost to county assemblies discussing the People's Assembly motions.
Kakamega, resist!
Now, yesterday, Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, Henry Rotich, declared that Kenya's economy remains strong and stable. In a series of tweets on his personal handle, the CS went all out to outline his optimism with regard to Kenya's fiscal health. But as it turns out, that did not go unquestioned by the ruthless Kenyans on Twitter. Let's take a look at some of the tweets. Government has revised the economic growth rate to 5.1% for 2017, owing to the drought experience at the beginning of the year and the prolonged electioneering period we have had in the country. Hashtag EconomyKE. The 5.1% growth target is achievable, taking into account the growth we have experienced in the first and second quarters of 2017 as 4.7% and 5% respectively. The macroeconomic, it goes on to say, environment has remained stable with the rate of inflation declining through the year to stand at 5.72% for the month of October, the lowest we have had for a year, while the exchange rates have remained stable. To further demonstrate the stability of our economy, our foreign exchange reserves stand at $8 billion, translating to about a 5-month import cover. More tweets coming up. Our fiscal deficit for the 2017-2018 financial year is 6.4%, down from 8.5% in the year 2016-2017 financial year. We continue to focus on bringing down debt levels. We've kept our fiscal deficit at manageable level vis-a-vis our GDP and shall continue to do so. That's the CS for Treasury, Henry Rotich, on his personal Twitter handle yesterday. We do have one more tweet. The economy is expected to rebound in 2018 and is forecast to expand by between 6% and 7% owing to anticipated favorable agricultural output. Following the short rains, agriculture contributes more than 25% of our GDP. We use the hashtag EconomyKE. Yes, and the main one, Kenya's economy remains strong and stable. All economic fundamentals are solid. Kenya is moving forward. But as I had mentioned, not everyone believed him. Not everyone took his message down just like that. Kenyans on Twitter responded. We do have a number of tweets. Alice Chemtai, Twitter handle @Chemtai Alice. She says, 8 out of 9 of my friends from Nandi and Kericho County who graduated between 2013 and 2017 are either jobless or tammocking and take liquor in the villages. Jubilee is bad to all Kenyans. CS Rotich must stop his lies about economy KE on papers and embrace reality. Demotaris @Gmotari says, how is the economy stable yet Nakumatt is closing up? How is it stable yet lecturers are on strike? What we know, we are only surviving on loans from outside countries which are even being looted and no one is held accountable. #resist. And one more @Ramzi Ramapithecus. Borrow money to develop the country, use the money borrowed to develop your tumbo, borrow money to pay back the loan, steal the loan money and raise taxes to pay for it, then repeat. #economy KE. And even as this happens, the headline on Business Daily this morning says this: Safaricom sheds 20 billion shillings in week of NASA boycott. Yes, Telcom's operator Safaricom's market value shed 20 billion shillings in the first week of opposition coalition NASA's call on their supporters to boycott the firm's services. This is not me saying it. That's the headline on the Business Daily this morning. Markets, but hourly say movement mainly due to price correction after first half results. Well, still talking about the economy, on page 30 of Daily Nation, Treasury eyes syndicated loan before Eurobond issue. CS Rotich says the maturing date for the 77.25 billion shilling facility taken in 2015 has been extended to April next year. And he says, we took the option of syndication as we wait for options, but if we issue a bond early, it can repay that. Well, I cannot pretend I know all these things when it comes to fiscal health, but with me in studio this morning I do have an economist, Ken Gishenga. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Well, the CS says the economy is strong and stable. Kenyans disagree because of obvious reasons. What is your take on this?
Well, thanks for having me. The reality in economics is you have two branches of economics. You have macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macro looks at what's happening at the national level, and that's what CS Rotich is talking about, the GDP, the inflation. And what people are referring to is a micro. This is what's happening in their home counties. So while it can be true that at the macro level inflation is coming down, I think we need to interrogate further at the counties. Can we get these numbers county by county? Because what happens is at the macro level you're averaging the whole country. So you might have some places that are doing very well like Nairobi or Mombasa or Kisumu, but you'll have places like West Pokot which are not doing very well. So I think Kenyans are referring more to the micro, what they see in their day-to-day lives.
But my understanding is that one affects the other. The microeconomy definitely at some point will affect the macroeconomy.
Well, the reality of Kenya's economy has been, it's been largely dominated in the three cities of Mombasa, Nairobi and Kisumu. From the 1900s, that's where the railway line has gone. If you remove those three cities from the country's economics, you realize that places like Lamu, places like Mandera, have not actually contributed very much, sometimes to the GDP, and sometimes because of the high averages in Nairobi and Kisumu, they tend to uplift the numbers. So I think what we need right now, and this is something I've been pushing for a long time, can we get these statistics on a county by county level? Every county has somebody called the county treasurer or the county economic finance minister. Why can't they produce a county economic report so that the reports like what Alice Chemtai was saying in Nandi, can we analyze the inflation in Nandi? Can we analyze the
instead of a blanket evaluation of the economy?
Precisely.
But okay, thinking like a common Mwananchi, as I said, I'm not an expert in matters economy, but everyone is feeling the pinch. There's simply no money in the pocket. So when the CS comes out and says the economy is stable and strong and Kenya is moving forward, what exactly is he saying?
I think he's referring to the global economic situation, where if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, growth is actually reducing. If you look at South Africa, it's not doing well. If you look at Nigeria, it's not doing well. If you look at inflation in Kenya at 5%, it's actually on the lower end. So I think the challenge is when you talk of policy at the macro level, I think you speak to realities that the ordinary Mwananchi cannot quite experience. It's still true for the policy makers, but I think I wish the CS would go a bit further and say at the county levels, this is what, and these numbers, we do have the numbers at the county levels, because what happens is, like the standard gauge railway, it can contribute so much to the economy in terms of the construction of it, that single line item, if you remove it, you'll realize maybe everything else is not doing very, very well.
So what you're saying, Ken, is that the CS is right, but he's just talking to the wrong audience.
I think that's something right. Compared to a classroom, for example, where you have, let's say it's a KCP classroom, where you have everybody scoring maybe a score like a 300. Then you have two students who score the top marks of 500. So they do lift the class average, but if you remove those two students, you realize actually everybody else is not doing very well, and that's the challenge of macroeconomics. You average numbers that are very, very sort of like a distance apart. So the cure for that is, can we do county by county analysis? And it's a longer procedure, but I think that's what people are living. When you talk of Nakumatt, when you talk of Safaricom, these are things that people experience on a day-to-day basis, and I think Kenyans want more of a micro economic analysis and a macro
plus micro explanations from the CS.
Absolutely.
Because even just looking at the tweets, someone mentioned Nakumatt there. How is the economy stable yet Nakumatt is closing? How is it stable yet lecturers are going on strike? But this is very interesting one here. Borrow money to develop the country, use the money borrowed to develop your tumbo, borrow money to pay back the loan, steal the loan money and raise the taxes to pay for it, then repeat again. That's the feeling that the common Kenyan Mwananchi feel that this government probably is doing. And just looking at the headlines, the one I've just read, Treasury eyes syndicated loan before Eurobond issue. We're back. This issue about the national debt. Yes. Probably even as Kenyans, we do not really get to understand it very well. Headlines like this, we're borrowing money, yet there's a tweet there by the CS saying we're managing our debt levels because they say we have kept our fiscal deficit at manageable levels vis-a-vis our GDP and continue to do so. There was one where he specifically, our fiscal deficit for the financial year 2017-2018 is 6.4%, down from 8.5%. We continue to focus on bringing down debt levels. That's the tweet. Yet here we're talking about another syndicated loan, another loan maturing in April next year.
The reality is you need money supply in an economy. The economy cannot function without cash. So there are three ways of raising cash. You could raise it from taxes, you could increase people's taxes, you could borrow debt, either from the domestic market or from foreigners. And a third way is you could actually print more money. The third way is maybe not preferred because it can drive inflation and such things. So pretty much it's either you raise taxes, and this economy, as you say, these companies are posting profit warnings, so they cannot give you the kind of taxes that you'd have wanted. So the only option left really is to borrow, and to borrow from international markets. So the question is, how do you borrow in a way that that makes sense? That's the question people are asking. What interest rates are we getting? So I think Kenyans want to get more involved in the intricacies of this kind of debt. Is it dollar debt? Is it shilling debt? And if it's dollar debt, what's the percentage you are paying on it? And
and for how long?
And I think those are the kind of details. I think Kenyans are becoming much more sort of like data hungry than in the past. But at the end of the day, it's those are the only two ways that the government right now can raise cash.
This kind of analysis by Ramapithecus at Ramsey, borrow money to develop the country, then get more money borrow more money to pay the debt.
Well, I think this is an oversimplification of the situation.
Probably that's the kind of simplification the CS should have towards the kind of audience we are addressing here.
I mean, he should tell the Kenyans how much money, for the Eurobond, for example, how much did we borrow? And I think they tried to sort of like put that in the newspapers for people to explain. You could say maybe it was not as simple as most Kenyans would have wanted it to be. But the reality is, I think what Kenyans really want is when this money is raised, how is it sort of like going to the counties? What projects are they sort of like involved in the project? And I think people want to see tangible things. People want to see, say, this highway was actually built from...
It is a communication issue.
It is a communication issue that I think they can improve on. I don't think they're necessarily doing a wrong thing, but I wish they could sort of like polish up with the communication. Say, this kind of money was used for this kind of highway, this kind of level 5 hospital was built from this loan from the IMF or from the World Bank. So I agree with you. But I think at the micro level, most Kenyans are realizing what really affects them is what's happening at the most immediate surroundings.
Yes, Kenya's economy remains strong and stable. All economic fundamentals are solid. Kenya is moving forward. That's CS Henry Rotich, CS for Treasury. Thank you so much. Ken Gishinga, economist, helping us understand what the CS really meant when he said what he said.
Thank you.
Still on the economy, the Cooperative Bank has announced a profit after tax of 9.5 billion shillings for the third quarter period ending 30th September. This 9.5% lower than 10.5 billion shillings the bank posted in 2016 as interest income during the period slowed. During the quarter, Cooperative Bank grew its loan book to 259.4 billion shillings compared to 227 billion last year. This, however, did little to boost the bank's total interest income, which declined by 7.7% to 29.9 billion shillings. The bank's operating expenses also rose marginally to 17.25 billion shillings, while operating income dropped by 4.5% to 30.9 billion shillings. To other stories now, President Uhuru Kenyatta and First Lady Margaret Kenyatta yesterday visited the family of the late Nyeri Governor Dr. Gakuru Wahome at Nairobi's Runda Estate to offer condolences to the bereaved family. Meanwhile, burial preparations are ongoing at his rural home in Nyeri's Kanuna village. Sylvia Chebet reports.
President Uhuru Kenyatta and First Lady Margaret Kenyatta set off early today for Runda Estate in Nairobi, where the late Nyeri Governor Dr. Gakuru Wahome lived, to condole with his family. Hearty embraces giving the grieving wife and children solace, having lost their husband and father in the most horrific way. Half an hour would pass before the president and his wife said goodbyes to the bereaved family. But as they left, more visitors, group after group, streamed in, giving strength and comfort to the mother and sons. The family, which is grappling with dealing with the situation with as little disturbance as possible to the son sitting his KCSE exam at Alliance Boys, has agreed with the funeral committees, one headed by Council of Governors Chair Josephat Nanok and ICT Cabinet Secretary John Musheru, and the other by Nyeri Deputy Governor Mutahi Kahiga and Senator Ephraim Maina, to have the burial take place on Saturday, the coming week on the 18th. Before that, a requiem service has been scheduled for Thursday the 16th at Nairobi's Christ is the Answer Ministries Church on Valley Road. Back in the village, Nyeri's Kanuna village, a lot was going on. The way to the governor's home was being paved to ensure mourners do not get stuck along the way, especially with the pounding rains. Thousands are expected to attend the funeral of a governor many believe had the markings of greatness. While the burial preparations continue in earnest, police are heightening investigations into the accident, with the homicide police squad visiting the scene of accident last evening and re-examining the ill-fated car to establish what really caused the crash.
Yes, and the headlines this morning on the Daily Nation: Gakuru death exposes gaps in county law. With no requirement of by-election, should the governor die in office, the deputy automatically takes over without obligation to appoint a deputy. Senators want this change. Now, the latest passing on of a county governor has brought to the fore the existence of loopholes in county laws. The fact that the constitution is silent on the need for a deputy governor taking over as a new county boss to appoint a deputy could present a problem. Meanwhile, governors are concerned about the speed with which a deputy is sworn in to take over at the helm of the county once a governor passes on. Joining me for this discussion now, Michael Agwanda and Eric Wenjohi. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
This week, on Monday, after that fateful accident that took away the life of Nyeri governors came together a few hours later at a hotel in Nairobi, and one of them, specifically Mike Sonko, the governor for Nairobi, expressed a concern. He voiced a concern. Yet he also quipped that it could be premature for him to say it, but he voiced it on live TV, that it's a bit unfair for a governor to pass on in the morning, and by 3 hours later, you're already talking about swearing in his deputy. That kind of discussion has seen that swearing in ceremony of his deputy to take over postponed. It was meant to happen yesterday. Now it has been postponed indefinitely. Now, the issues of insensitivity. Yes, a man has gone, people are in mourning, but the county has to move on. Yes, is it a matter of laws? Because we do understand at the national level something similar is supposed to happen. That if the president is not able to carry out his duty, then the deputy takes over immediately and is sworn in to take office. At the county level, do you think it's wrong to do this, Eric?
I think rushing into it is not very tasteful, especially in the minds of mourners and well-wishers. The county should be given at least a few days to mourn. Thereafter, continue with business as usual, because as it is right now, even with the governor's departure, county business is still going on. But that excitement of swearing in another governor should not be rushed, at least as much as it was done. 2-3 days after the governor has died, there's all that talk of the swearing in. I think it was a bit too premature for that.
But how soon is too soon? Because how long can you wait? Because do you wait until after the funeral so that you can go back and sort out issues of the county? Michael?
First of all, I want to say, Fred, that I think what sort of caught my eye is more than the swearing in of the deputy governor was the fact that the governor, the body of the governor, or the governor himself, will be stuck on a road for over 40 minutes. And the question that all Kenyans are asking, if this is a governor, and one of his aides was out there trying frantically to call everyone he could to come and rescue them, 40 minutes on the road, no help, is something that this country needs to work on. I want to say that equipping Kenyatta National Hospital or Nairobi Hospital, many current hospital, is probably not the best thing this country need to be doing. We need to be thinking about those dispensaries in the community, because you find accident on the highway, and the next place you're going to be going to is the nearest hospital.
Yes, yes.
The question is, why wouldn't we, even as a county, different counties, ensure that within 25 kilometers or 50 kilometers there is an ambulance station there, just for any eventualities, because we know accidents are taking lives. And for the governor to be there for 40 minutes, it's unbelievable that we can't even ask for a chopper to airlift that person. But now coming back to your question on issues of the tradition, I strongly believe that every single government, the president must have the seal of power. And for the president, it's a different situation. But when you have a governor, even if a governor steps aside for a minute or so, it doesn't mean that work doesn't go on. I mean, we have governors that have gone abroad, some of them for a month, some of them even for, his predecessors, I think, in the same, was in the hospital for a while before he passed on there. And that did not stop the functionality of the county with the CECs and the cabinet secretaries. And for that reason, the idea of the rush is perhaps what people are wondering about. And the change of the number plate from, within just hours, his number plate was being removed and taken to the deputy's vehicle. That might not have been the problem of the deputy governor, but that's a problem in law, that
perhaps is a lacuna in law in transition of the governor to the deputy in case of something that happens like what happened. And I think
is it something that would require some extra legislation?
I think there's already a legislation going on in the Senate.
And as far as the timelines are concerned, once this happens, how long it will take until
I think they're looking at that. Even looking at the possibility of, according to the laws, the deputy governor assumes office, but is not allowed to have another deputy governor.
Yes.
And for that reason,
that's the other question. That's the other question, and that's a headline on the Daily, on the front page of the Daily Nation. With no requirement of by-election, should a governor die in office, the deputy takes over. But now, the Constitution is silent. He has no obligation to appoint a deputy. Then what happens going forward? Because now he takes over for the remainder of the term. He has another, actually 5 years.
Sure.
He has full 5 years, but he doesn't say how the deputy will be appointed. This is going to be a problem, Eric.
The governor at the moment can be able to appoint any person that he wants to.
Based on what law? Because
in terms of advisory, in terms of his office. He may not be able to appoint a deputy governor, but he can be able to appoint advisors who can do the work of a deputy governor. But at the moment, I know there is a bill before Senate trying to look into this, because there is also that vacuum that in case he goes abroad, now who takes over? So there's a vacuum that needs to be filled, and this is what Senate is actually trying to sort out.
And it brings to the fore now the role of the deputy governor, because many people, even during the electioneering period, people did not really focus much on who the governor's running mate or the running mate to the candidate for governorship was. But it appears going forward, more scrutiny will be put even on the running mate of the governors.
Correct.
This is something that people did not envision. People did not envision that if a governor passes on 2.5 years after the general election, then the governor stays, the deputy governor stays in the office and is only eligible to be voted once again. That simply means that he can only serve like 5 terms. And this specific deputy
one more term.
Yeah. This specific governor will serve this term, full term, and then he can only run once. That means he will be like the substantive governor for 2 consecutive terms. But if for any reason the governor dies 2.5 years after the general election, then he can only serve that remaining time and also allowed again to 2 more terms. And now that puts in question to the credibility, not the credibility, but the ability for the deputy governor to assume office when the governor exits for one reason or the other. Remember that the deputy governors have been appointed at the whim of the governor, and basically no much has been put into them. But now the fear is you're having a deputy governor that could be that weak guy that you wanted to control as a governor and not to have much say, and then suddenly that weak guy that perhaps did not have enough quality, the stamina, the energy, he did not have the support of the ground, becomes the governor, and then you have questions of mediocrity, questions of inability to perform.
No politician will get a very strong
one exemptional thing about this particular governor. He started campaigning for the position of deputy governor even before being appointed by any of those other contestants in terms of governors. He started campaigning saying that he'd want to be a deputy governor to the best person that is appointed governor.
Wow, that's
a campaign platform that he started on. So on the ground level, he is a bit popular. He may not be popular as a governor, as a late governor, but he's quite popular as well, because he popularized himself, and he did not allow a situation whereby it's the governor that was popularizing him. So that's a very unique quality in this particular.
And we've not seen something like that in other counties.
In other counties, hardly have we seen deputy governors campaigning, because they've all been riding upon the governor's campaign. But this particular deputy governor started campaigning before even people could decide.
We're talking about Mutahi Kahiga, the deputy governor of Nyeri County.
Yes.
So he went out to campaign on his own.
He went out to campaign on his own, and now when the late governor came and picked him up, they continued riding on the same campaign platform. And then remember, he has a background of running a union of being in the union. So with that, he knows how to mobilize clout around specific issues. And now we cannot really underestimate his capacity to lead. However, my only concern is the speed at which the transition is happening. At least give people some time to mourn. Then let's go back.
Should we legislate? Should we legislate? In as far as that time is concerned, it would be say it cannot happen until 3 weeks are done or something like that.
It would be a bit tricky to legislate because specific issues may come up in between. For instance, if somebody goes and places a caveat interfering with the burial of the governor, then that means it prolongs the period of which he's going to be buried.
But you have to wait until
exactly. So I think the best thing to do is just to be human on some of these issues. Since the Constitution is very open about it, we can have a principle saying that, for instance, we can do it within 2 or 3 weeks after the death.
Yet that is only when a governor exits office through death. There are other reasons like resignation, impeachment. If we fail to legislate on these matters and give a proper timeline, then we just leave it to go hanging the way it is right now. Don't you think that's a problem? Because a governor could resign today and the deputies required to take over immediately. Are we saying that in that instance the swearing in should not take place immediately?
You know, I really think that this must be legislated. There must be rules laid down, just like the president of a country.
So that we say, in case of resignation, this is the timeline. In case of death, correct. This is the timeline.
This is what is going to happen, and this is the procedure of giving the power or handing over the power to the new governor. I think that one is missing, and I hope the Senate will do a good job. The problem, however, Fred, as you read that story, you realize that the Senate says, oh, you know, we had already legislated on this and we forwarded it to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General didn't publish it. The Attorney General, on the other hand, says, oh, I did it. I forwarded it to Parliament to look at it. And so you're seeing that they had already thought about it in the first Senate. But no much amounted to it. In fact, I think a number of senators are saying, we discussed this matter, but it didn't really see the light of the day. I think it is now crucial, because another thing that is going to be very, very delicate is the talk that is out there, that perhaps even the governors might be in danger as a result of the rogue deputy governors that might be coming after their life, knowing very well that if that happens, then they assume their office, and that's a danger. And I think everybody out there is saying, Sonko must really have felt threatened by just the whole fiasco.
Or even impeachment. Governors being pursued on matters of impeachment, and that case went on and on. It was actually a very high possibility that the governor could have been impeached. He could have lost his seat. Then the deputy takes over. If you, as a politician, if you appoint or if you pick a very powerful running mate as your deputy, then politically you disagree, as we've seen in a number of counties, especially in the last electioneering period, that could present a problem for you politically. And probably that's where the governors are coming from, that they fear picking a strong deputy, yet this deputy that you pick, however weak, however strong, is only a heartbeat away from that seat.
Correct, and not even just that, even the way they work together. For instance, what has happened in Nyeri has exposed a lot about how county governments are formed. You've seen the episodes that are going on social media especially, that the governor had appointed several girlfriends, the deputy governor has also done the same into CECs and other positions. So you have a situation whereby a county government is run out of a relationship kind of a model, then in terms of functionality.
So when you have allegations and allegations at this time,
the allegations that it's just talk on social media, how true or how false it is, it hasn't been ascertained. But in case there's some truth behind it, it shows the danger that we've been facing as Kenyans from our political leaders. That we have a situation whereby people can be able to be appointed based on their personal relationship other than merit, which is very dangerous. And that also affects the appointment of people like deputy governors, because when you pick up a deputy governor, you're trying to make a situation whereby the county can run in your absence as the governor. Now, if you do that from a point of emotions and not from a point of merit, then the danger is the county may go down in case you're absent from it.
Yeah. And that's what senators are trying to remedy here. Why new Nyeri governor could have a deputy. Senators are preparing a bill to enable a deputy governor who takes over the running of a county to appoint an assistant. The bill being drafted by Deputy Speaker Kithure Kindiki and Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen could be tabled in the House for debate by next month. Under the current law, a deputy governor automatically assumes office in case of death, resignation, or impeachment of the governor. Thank you so much, Eric Wanjohi and Michael Agwanda, for that discussion. Yes. Now, a person of interest this entire week, one of the persons of interest this entire week has been that eyewitness who gave his own account of the accident that claimed the life of Nyeri Governor Dr. Wahome Gakuru. He has been quoted on other media as being the same one who gave an eyewitness account of what happened to the ill-fated chopper that went down in Lake Nakuru a week ago. The fate of this eyewitness is still unknown. We do not know where he is right now, even as police continue investigating what happened in that accident. But joining me in studio is one person who has been affected by all this. Good morning and karibu sana. Let's start with your name.
My name is Njeru Njagi.
Njeru Njagi.
Yes.
Well, Njeru, how has this affected you? Because that story has been very interesting this whole week. Everyone has been talking about that eyewitness. And the fact that he was there at Lake Nakuru, the fact that he was there at Kabati where the vehicle carrying the late governor had an accident. How has this affected you and how are you related to this?
I think the only relationship I have with this is that I look like Dennis Muigai Ngengi.
So people have come to you and said you look like Dennis Muigai Ngengi.
Actually, it started on Facebook. People downloaded my photo and put the photo alongside Dennis Muigai Ngengi's. And then from there, my photo for some reason has been trending all over. Okay, I must admit there's a resemblance.
Yes.
But I don't. If one checks closely, you notice that we are not. Actually, I don't look like him. I'm older than him.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've never met this man?
I've never met this man. I do not know him.
Yes.
No.
And there's something very peculiar about the eyewitness, those dark glasses. Do you, by any chance, use such sunglasses? Okay, I have a pair, which I used to take the photo that is trending. Yes.
And mostly when I use them, they have a camera. The glasses have a camera.
Yes.
So I can record video net on them. I can take photos.
Do you by any chance have those glasses here?
I have them.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah. So, mostly when I use them to listen to music, especially when I'm traveling.
Just put them on.
Yeah.
So that's the picture people say.
Yes.
Resembles whenever you wear the glasses. Is it something that you do often? Is this your kind of look every day?
Actually, no. I've not even put these glasses. The last time I put them, I think, was in April this year.
Oh, but the problem is you put these glasses, you took a picture and posted. on social media.
Yes, I did that, and that was back in 2015. It's not even this year. It's not last year. I got the glasses in December 2014, and actually when I took this photo, which is threading on Facebook, I took the photo as like a marketing or something.
Yes.
Fred was wondering whether the glasses can have a market here. I'm in the film industry. I'm a cameraman myself by profession. So we took this photo, these glasses as sort of a promotion or marketing, whatever. So I just put them. We took photos. My colleague took a photo of me. I took a photo of my colleague. And then I posted the photo on social media. I didn't know that it would...
but when you do not have the glasses on, has anyone approached you and told you look like that gentleman?
No.
It's only when you have the glasses on?
Yes.
So the only issue is the fact that you have this photo on Facebook.
Let me clarify. This issue of me looking like this guy has only, started this week, like maybe 3 days ago. Yeah. So far, only a few people have called me on phone after seeing the photo on Facebook and told me that you look like that guy, and then people have taken this issue too far, because there are people who are calling for me being shot on sight because I'm an assassin, I'm a hitman, I'm a very trained.
Now all these threats are on Facebook.
On Facebook.
Have you reported this matter to the police, because that's a security issue now?
No, it became an issue like yesterday, because that's when now it became too much. Yeah, yes. It started on Tuesday night, and mostly the whole of Wednesday. So yesterday I decided, no, this is too much.
So what did you do after that?
Okay, I've not reported anything because there's not been a real threat on me. So far it has already been people calling on me
on social media, especially.
Yeah, to be being investigated. Who are you? I try to tell them I'm a cameraman. What is a cameraman doing with those glasses? All that.
Do you don't feel safe using these sunglasses?
I don't know. I don't know. Actually, as I said, I do not use these glasses.
Just put them back on. Just put them back on. Yes.
Yeah, I don't use them all the time. As I said, mostly when I use them to listen to music, because they have a memory card, and I can play music when I'm traveling. Yeah.
Okay.
But on a normal day-to-day, I do not wear them and walk around. And in fact, right now, I wonder what would happen if I put them like now, and I took a stroll on like Tom Brass Street. What would happen?
What would happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you do agree there is some resemblance to this gentleman, this person of interest now?
Especially when I have them on.
When you have them on.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Bonanjero. Bonanjero says he is not that gentleman who was the eyewitness in that accident that claimed the life of Governor Wahome Gakuru. He is also not the man who gave an eyewitness account of the ill-fated chopper that went down in Lake Nakuru 2 weeks ago. He says he has received a lot of threats, and is here to clarify on the fact that he is not Dennis Muigai Ngengi. He is indeed Njeru Njage. Bwana Njeru Njage, asante sana. Yes. We'll now leave you with pictures of Black Panther, the latest movie where our very own Lupita Nyong'o is involved. Let's take a look at them. Yes, you're still watching Power Breakfast right here on Citizen TV. Time now for a break. We'll be back with more on the